The first warning Dr. Vexai felt was not the alarm. It was the cold. The wall beneath his crystal hand had stopped humming with engine heat, and the silence inside the research vessel felt larger than space itself. Around him, the peaceful dawn was dying. 12 Zaphirian scientists lay across the tilted floor of the communication bay, their translucent bodies turning dull and gray as the Corac poison moved through them. They had not been soldiers. They had not carried weapons. 3 hours earlier, they had been cataloging route patterns on a dead moon, arguing softly about whether a violet fungus could dream. Then the Corac warships arrived. 20 black vessels had dropped out of the void without warning, their hulls shaped like open claws. They did not demand surrender. They did not ask who the Zaphirians served. Their commanders simply fired, because to the Corac Empire, mercy was a language spoken only by prey. The poison missile tore through the peaceful dawn's shields and burst inside the lower decks. It did not explode like a weapon meant to win a battle. It spread like a sentence. Now the ship drifted above the moon, life support bleeding away, engines dead, medical systems useless. The stars outside the cracked viewport looked calm. That offended Vexai more than the pain. "Doctor." The voice came from behind him, thin as broken glass. Vexai turned. Zinara, his research partner, was lying beside an overturned console. One of her crystal arms had fractured during the impact. Light leaked weakly through the cracks in her body. "The children on Harmonis Prime," she whispered. "Are they safe?" Vexai could not answer. That was the cruelty of it. He could calculate the spread of the poison in his bloodstream. He could identify the exact alloy failing in the bulkhead. He could name 300 species of moss by scent alone. But he could not tell a dying friend that the children were safe, because the Corac never stopped with one ship. Harmonis Prime had no army. Its cities were grown from singing crystal towers. Its people built gardens, instruments, observatories, and schools where young Zaphirians learned to shape light into music. When the wind moved through their capital, the whole city sang. The Corac would hear that music and call it weakness. Zinara understood his silence. Her hand trembled once, then went still. Vexai stayed beside her until the soft glow faded from her chest. Another alarm died somewhere in the ship. For a few seconds, there was no sound except the emergency transmitter repeating its empty pulse, waiting for a command. Vexai forced himself upright. His legs shook. Gray veins were already spreading through the crystal of his hands. The main control panel was a field of red warnings. Engines lost. Shields lost. Medical bay contaminated. Escape pods destroyed. Navigation offline. Only one system still burned green. Long-range communications. He stared at it. Most of the listed frequencies led to Federation worlds too distant to respond, or too afraid to oppose the Corac. The Empire controlled a third of civilized space. It harvested peaceful planets, broke their cultures, and called the result order. Everyone condemned them in council chambers. No one arrived when the bombing started. Vexai scrolled past useless names. Then his hand stopped. At the bottom of the emergency archive was a frequency sealed under 12 warning marks. Earth. Forbidden contact world. Deathworld classification. Approach prohibited. Emergency use only. Species capable of extreme violence. Use at your own risk. Vexai's cracked fingers hovered above the command. Every Zaphirian child knew the old stories. Humans were the reason certain stars were marked with quarantine rings. Soft-skinned predators from a blue planet where storms killed, oceans swallowed cities, and creatures survived by eating one another. They fought wars that lasted generations. They built weapons before they built peace. Their first meeting with the galaxy had ended with diplomats fleeing and Corac champions broken on an arena floor. The galaxy called them monsters. But there was another line in the forbidden files, always buried beneath the warnings. Humans protected things that could not protect themselves. No scholar had ever explained it. No strategist had ever made it logical. Yet every surviving report agreed. Humans would cross fire for strangers. They would bleed for children not their own. They would stand between danger and the helpless as if the universe had personally insulted them. Vexai looked back at his dead crew. Then he thought of Harmonious Prime, of crystal classrooms, of children singing morning lessons while Corac ships descended through the clouds. His fear became smaller than his shame. He opened the forbidden frequency. The transmitter resisted at first, demanding confirmation after confirmation, as if the machine itself feared what he was about to wake. Vexai gave every authorization he had. The signal array turned toward a small blue world so distant it looked like nothing on the star map. The message would take weeks. He would be dead in minutes. So he spoke. This is Dr. Vexai of the Zaphirian Science Council. Our research vessel has been attacked by the Corac Empire. Our people are peaceful. We have never harmed anyone. Harmonious Prime is defenseless. Our children are in danger. His voice broke. He tasted metal inside his mouth. We know what you are. We know why the galaxy fears you. But we also know you protect those who cannot protect themselves. Behind him, the last life monitor went flat. Vexai closed his eyes. We have nothing to offer except gratitude. Help us, please. The transmission launched into the dark. Vexai sank beside Zinara, one hand still resting on the console. The poison reached his heart a moment later. His final thought was not of death or monsters or fear. It was a question. If the stories were true, would the monsters come? Hours passed. The peaceful dawn went silent. But the signal kept traveling, crossing dead systems, frozen nebulae, and abandoned war zones, carrying a dying scientist's plea toward the one planet the galaxy had spent 3 centuries trying not to remember. And on Earth, deep beneath the lunar surface, an old receiver opened its eye. The signal reached Earth during the quietest hour of the lunar night. At Terra Defense Command, most of the lower stations were running on automated watch. Operators drank cold coffee under dim blue lights while old satellites tracked empty sectors no one had crossed in 3 centuries. Then a receiver buried beneath 70 meters of lunar stone began to scream. Lieutenant Mara Ellison looked up from her console as a line of dead code unfolded across the screen. The language was ancient Federation emergency syntax. No one used it anymore. No one outside Earth was supposed to know the receiver still existed. She ran the translation once. Then again. By the 3rd pass, her hands had stopped moving. Children. Poison. Harmonious Prime. Corac Empire. Help us, please. The room seemed to shrink around her. For 300 years, the galaxy had ignored Earth. They had called humanity too dangerous, too unstable, too comfortable with violence. The quarantine beacons around the solar system had repeated the same message for generations. Do not approach. Do not contact. Do not provoke. Now someone had broken every warning because death had left them no cleaner option. Mara opened the emergency command channel. Admiral Chen needs to see this now. 31 minutes later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood alone in the secure chamber beneath Luna Base, reading the message for the 12th time. She was not a woman who wasted anger. She kept it stored behind a still face and measured eyes. But the words on the screen found old places inside her that training had never removed. Our children are in danger. We know what you are. Help us, please. Chen touched the edge of the display with one finger. The attached files opened beside the message. Corac fleet signatures. Civilian population maps. Evacuation estimates. Harmonious Prime's defense rating. 0. No orbital guns. No planetary shields. No military command structure. A civilization of teachers, botanists, musicians, and children, waiting beneath the shadow of ships built by predators who liked their victims helpless. Chen activated the War Council channel. Faces appeared around her in hard light. General Morrison from Mars Command. Admiral Reyes from Jupiter Fleet. Colonel Jiang from Special Operations. Civilian Defense Minister Hale, pulled from sleep with his collar still unsealed. No one spoke while the message played. When it ended, the silence lasted long enough for the room's air system to become audible. 300 years, Morrison said at last. No one has asked us for anything in 300 years. They are asking now, Chen replied. Reyes leaned forward. The Corac Empire controls a third of mapped space. 40,000 active warships by old estimates. More now, probably. They attacked a research vessel, Jiang said. then moved on a civilian world. Minister Hale rubbed both hands over his face. If we answer, quarantine ends. The Federation will panic. Every old fear about us becomes active again. Chen looked at each of them. They are already afraid of us. No one argued. Everyone in that room knew why Earth had been sealed away. First contact had not failed because humans attacked diplomats. It failed because the diplomats brought humans to watch the Corac Honor Games, where stronger species beat weaker ones for sport. The Federation expected curiosity. The humans showed disgust. 6 human escorts had crossed into the arena and dismantled 12 Corac champions in front of half the diplomatic corps. No weapons. No speeches. Just controlled violence delivered with such precision that the galaxy mistook restraint for joy. Afterward, Earth accepted quarantine. Not because humanity was weak. Because humanity had seen what fear did to peaceful civilizations. Chen closed the old file. The Zaphirians called us monsters, she said. Then asked the monsters to save their children. Colonel Zhang's expression hardened. Recommendation? Chen did not raise her voice. We answer. One by one, the council voted. Unanimous. Chen entered a command sequence used for 3 centuries. Across the solar system, sealed hangars opened. Shipyards shifted from civilian production to military output. Sleeping weapons woke under mountains, moons, and ocean floors. 3 vessels received priority clearance. UES Retribution, US Wrath, US Fury. Small ships by Galactic standards. Skeleton crews. Experimental systems. Built during isolation by a species that had spent 300 years improving everything, including the parts of itself the galaxy feared most. Chen opened the fleet channel. Task Force Cerberus, you are authorized to leave Earth space. Mission parameters are simple. Save the innocent. Stop the Corac. Captain Torres answered first. Understood, Admiral. Commander Nakamura followed. Wrath is ready. Major Volkov's voice came last, calm and almost eager. Fury has been waiting. Chen looked at the blue curve of Earth on the wall display. No conquest, she said. No territory. No trophies. We are not going out there to become what they fear. Her eyes returned to the Zaphirian message. But anyone hurting those children has crossed the wrong border. 3 human ships vanished from the solar system without using a jump gate. Behind them, the quarantine beacons kept flashing their old warning into empty space. For the first time, the warning was no longer enough. Supreme Marshal Thakmer had conquered 47 worlds without learning the names of the dead. Names were for equals. The Zaphirians were not equals. They were voices inside crystal towers, soft shapes hiding beneath colored glass, a species so harmless that his officers had laughed when the conquest order arrived. Harmonious Prime had no planetary guns, no battle fleets, no warrior caste. Its strongest defensive structure was a weather shield built to protect orchards from hail. Thakmer stood on the command deck of the Iron Maw and watched the first cities burn. The planet below was beautiful in a way that irritated him. Crystal spires rose from blue forests and caught the morning sun, turning whole valleys into instruments. When his bombardment began, the towers did not explode at once. They screamed. The sound came through the fleet's atmospheric sensors, high and trembling, like the planet itself had learned pain. Continue the harvest, Thakmer ordered. His officers moved with practiced efficiency. Civilian districts were marked. Escape routes were sealed. Landing craft descended in black swarms. Corac soldiers poured into gardens, schools, hospitals, and music halls with shock rifles ready. On the main display, a group of Zaphirian children clustered beneath a broken observatory dome. A teacher stood over them with both arms spread, as if a body made of crystal could stop armored troops. Thakmer watched until the soldiers reached the dome. Then his sensor officer made a confused sound. Marshal. 3 vessels just appeared at the outer edge of the system. Thakmer did not turn. Federation observers? Unknown design. Very small. Approximately 50 crew each. A dry clicking moved through the command deck. Corac laughter. 3 small ships against 200 Imperial war vessels. The arrogance was almost charming. "Hail them," Thakmer said. "Give them one chance to leave." The connection opened. A human face appeared on the screen. Thakmer had seen old records of the forbidden species. Soft skin. Flat teeth. No claws. No scales. Nothing that should have survived a serious battlefield. This one wore a dark uniform and looked less angry than disappointed. "This is Captain Marcus Torres of the Terran vessel Retribution," the human said in perfect Corac. "Cease all attacks against Harmonis Prime. Withdraw from Zaphirian space. You have 60 seconds. The laughter stopped. Not because the threat was impressive. Because the voice contained no performance. No rage. No fear. It sounded like a door being locked. Thakmer leaned toward the screen. "Terran, your world was warned to stay hidden." Torres did not blink. 50 seconds. Thakmer's claws tightened around the rail. "Destroy them." The forward fleet fired. Energy beams, plasma lances, missile clusters, and gravity shells crossed the darkness in a single wave. Enough force to crack a small moon struck the coordinates where the 3 human ships had been. For one bright second, space became white. Then it cleared. The 3 ships were gone. A weapons officer raised both hands in triumph. "Targets destroyed." "No," the sensor officer whispered. Thakmer turned. The tactical display redrew itself. The human ships were inside the Corac formation. Not at the edge. Not behind it. Inside it, positioned between capital ships where no jump drive could have arrived without tearing itself apart. The first Corac cruiser died before anyone understood how. A beam from the Wrath touched its shields. The shield held. A second beam struck the same point with a different frequency. The shield warped. The third beam passed through as if the defense had never existed and cut the cruiser open from bow to engine core. The Retribution appeared in 4 places at once. Corac gunners fired at one image and hit nothing. The real ship fired from an angle no computer had predicted. 2 destroyers lost engines. A carrier's weapon deck folded inward. A command frigate went dark without a visible impact. Then the Fury moved. It did not dance. It charged. Straight through the densest fire, hull burning, armor glowing, engines white. Every Corac battery in range turned toward it. The ship should have vanished under the barrage. Instead, it kept coming, closer and closer, until even Thakmer's veteran bridge crew stepped back from the display. "All batteries," he roared. "Stop that ship." The Fury rolled beneath a plasma wall and released 6 black pods into the Iron Maw's docking spine. The command deck shook. "Report." His security officer stared at a side screen. "Borders." Internal cameras filled the main display. Humans in powered armor cut through Corac soldiers with frightening economy. They did not roar. They did not posture. They moved in pairs, covered angles, broke weapons, disabled limbs, and advanced through smoke as if they had already rehearsed the ship's death. One of them paused beside a fallen Corac officer who was reaching for a sidearm. The human stepped on the weapon, bent down, and said something the translator rendered flatly. "Not near civilians." Then the human moved on. Thakmer felt his first true fear when the jump alarms failed. Across the fleet, engines locked. Escape vectors collapsed. Emergency gates refused to open. The humans had not arrived to fight a battle. They had arrived to close a cage. "Signal surrender," Thakmer snapped. His communications officer looked at him as if the words had broken physics. "Do it." A moment later, Captain Torres returned to the screen. Thakmer forced the words out. "The Corac fleet surrenders." Torres stared at him through the smoke and flickering light. "Surrender is available to enemies," he said. "Not to butchers caught in the act." Behind Thakmer, another deck went silent. The Fury's borders were getting closer. For the first time in his life, Supreme Marshal Thakmer understood what his victims had felt when the sky filled with ships and no one came to save them. Only now, someone had come. Just not for him. Major Elena Volkov entered the Iron Maw's command deck through a door that no longer existed. The blast cut had turned the armored frame into molten ribbons. Smoke rolled behind her. Red emergency lights flashed across her black-powered armor, catching on dents, scorch marks, and old battle insignia carved into the plating by hand. Thakmer had expected something larger. The human standing before him was barely half his height. That made it worse. She moved without hurry, stepping over broken weapons and unconscious Corac guards as if the flagship of the Empire had already become a museum exhibit. 2 human soldiers followed behind her. Their rifles stayed lowered. They did not need to aim them. Everyone on the bridge understood that by then. Thakmer raised his claws. "I am Supreme Marshal of the Corac Empire." Volkov looked around the command deck. "Not anymore." One of his officers lunged. The movement was desperate, fast, and useless. Volkov caught the officer's wrist, turned once, and drove him into the floor hard enough to crack the metal plating. She did not look angry. She looked precise. That silence damaged Thakmer more than rage would have. Predators shouted. Conquerors celebrated. Warriors demanded fear. Humans simply arrived. Outside the viewport, his fleet was dying in organized fire. The Wrath's adaptive beams stripped shields from cruisers one layer at a time. The Retribution struck from impossible positions, every attack landing where Corac defenses had been strongest 1 second earlier. The Fury's boarding crews moved through key vessels like a disease with discipline. But they were not killing randomly. That realization reached Thakmer slowly. Ships that tried to fire on civilian evacuation zones were destroyed instantly. Ships that powered down weapons were disabled and left drifting. Command vessels were boarded. Slave transports were opened. Prison decks were cut loose and sealed for rescue. The humans were not a storm. They were a knife. Volkov stopped in front of him. "Order all Corac forces on Harmonis Prime to stand down," she said. Thakmer forced a laugh. It came out wrong. "You think 3 ships can dictate terms to an empire?" "No," Volkov said. "We think 1 message can." She gestured. A technician on the human channel transmitted live battlefield footage across the Corac command net. Every ship, every ground unit, every officer in the invasion force saw the same images. Imperial cruisers burning, boarding teams advancing, Corac champions disarmed and kneeling, Zaphirian civilians being pulled from rubble by armored humans who had crossed half the galaxy to save strangers. Then Volkov opened the channel to the planet below. The sound of Zaphirian children singing came through first. Frightened. Alive. Thakmer's mandibles stopped moving. Volkov watched him hear it. "That is why we came." He stared at her. "You are Deathworlders. You are built for war." "Yes." The answer was so clean that no one on the bridge breathed. Volkov stepped closer. "And you made war touch children." For a moment, Thakmer saw what the old stories had failed to explain. The humans were not dangerous because they enjoyed violence. That would have made them simple, manageable, familiar. They were dangerous because their violence had rules. And he had broken one. His pride fought for 1 more second. Then another explosion flashed outside the viewport, and the tactical display lost 40 ships at once. His voice cracked when he gave the order. "All Corac forces. Stand down. Withdraw from civilian zones. Release prisoners. Cease fire immediately." Across Harmonis Prime, Corac soldiers froze in the streets. Some obeyed. Some did not. The ones who raised weapons toward civilians were marked by human targeting systems before their fingers finished tightening. The battle ended in 47 minutes. 200 Corac ships became wreckage around a world they had expected to harvest. 40,000 Imperial warriors were dead, captured, or drifting powerless in broken hulls. Only the Iron Maw remained intact, surrounded by 3 small human vessels. Captain Torres appeared on every surviving Corac screen. "Message for your Emperor," he said. "Earth remembers what the Corac do to peaceful worlds. We remember why the galaxy feared us. But your empire forgot the important part." Thakmer stood trembling beneath the ruined ceiling of his own bridge. Torres leaned closer. "We were never quarantined to protect us from you." The transmission ended. The 3 human ships vanished. And Supreme Marshal Thakmer, conqueror of 47 worlds, was left alive for one reason only: to carry the warning home. The warning reached Emperor Corac 3 days later. At first, he thought the transmission was damaged. 200 ships lost. 40,000 warriors broken. Harmonious Prime liberated. Supreme Marshal Thakmar alive, but requesting permission to speak in private because his voice failed whenever he tried to describe the humans. Corac ordered the message checked again. The numbers did not change. In the war chamber beneath the Imperial Palace, his generals stood around the central display while recordings from the battle played in silence. 3 small vessels moved through the Corac fleet like blades through water. Shields failed. Engines died. Boarding teams appeared where no breach had been detected. Then the audio activated. Human laughter filled the chamber. No one moved. War Master Kelmuth, oldest of the Imperial commanders, lowered his head. The old records were true. Corac turned on him. Records are stories told by frightened diplomats. Kelmuth raised one claw, and the display changed. 300-year-old footage appeared. The first diplomatic arena. Corac champions standing before a crowd of Federation observers. Human escorts watching from the side, faces calm, hands empty. Then one champion struck a weaker alien contestant after surrender. 6 humans entered the arena. What followed was not a battle. It was correction. The humans broke weapons first. The knees. Then pride. They left every Corac champion alive, conscious, and unable to stand. One human helped the injured alien contestant away from the sand before looking at the Federation diplomats with disgust. Kelmuth's voice was low. They were never afraid of us. They were afraid of what they would do if we kept giving them reasons. Before Corac could answer, alarms shook the chamber. Reports arrived from across the Empire. A supply convoy in Sector 7 had vanished. No wreckage. No distress call. Just 20 escort ships missing from a protected route. The fortress world of Kaltos went dark for 6 hours. When communications returned, every prison camp was open, every civilian hostage gone, and half the officer corps locked inside their own interrogation cells. The Third Fleet reported system failures. Navigation screens filled with Zaphirian funeral music. Weapons refused to target hospitals, schools, or evacuation craft. Then a human voice spoke through every bridge at once. Choose better targets. Corac's generals began shouting over one another. They are inside our networks. They are striking 5 sectors at once. No empire can fight ghosts. Kelmuth watched the map with hollow eyes. They are not ghosts. More red lights appeared. Every Corac unit connected to civilian massacres was being found. Every commander who had bombed peaceful settlements received the same message before contact was lost. Earth remembers. Corac gripped the edge of the display hard enough to crack it. For the first time in Imperial history, the war map did not show conquest. It showed judgment moving toward the throne. Captain Torres appeared inside the Imperial Palace without entering it. Every screen in the war chamber went black at once. Then his face replaced the Empire's battle map, calm, steady, and close enough that Emperor Corac stepped back before he realized he had moved. No alarm had warned them. No encryption had slowed him. No wall had mattered. Emperor Corac, Torres said, we need to talk. The generals reached for weapons that no longer responded. Their sidearms flashed red and locked in their holsters. The palace defense grid powered down one ring at a time, not destroyed, not damaged, simply told to sleep. Corac forced his voice to remain steady. You invade my palace with tricks and call it talking? No, Torres said. This is restraint. Behind him, the screen divided into hundreds of live feeds. Corac prison ships opening their cells. Zaphirian families stepping into medical transports. Stolen resources being catalogued by automated human drones. Captured Corac officers seated in silence, alive, uninjured, and unable to command anything. We know what your empire has done, Torres continued. We know which fleets burned civilian cities. We know which commanders ordered experiments. We know which worlds begged for help while your soldiers laughed. Corac's throat tightened. The human had not raised his voice once. That was the worst part. What do you want? Corac asked. Withdrawal from every peaceful system. Release of all prisoners. Return of stolen resources. Reparations to every world your empire harvested. Public surrender of every officer involved in civilian massacres. A general snarled, "And if we refuse?" Torres looked at him. The general stopped speaking. "If you refuse, we continue," Torres said. "Not against your civilians. Not against your children. Not against your helpless. We are not you." The sentence landed harder than any weapon. "We continue against your fleets, your command structure, your prison worlds, your supply arteries, your throne, and every hand still raised against the innocent." Corac looked around the chamber. His generals avoided his eyes. For 1,000 years, the Empire had taught the galaxy that fear was obedience. Now fear had entered the palace and chosen a different master. Torres leaned closer. "Strength gave you the power to hurt the weak. That was all you understood." The chamber lights flickered. Humanity learned the harder lesson. Corac swallowed. "What lesson?" Torres's expression did not change. "The strong are the ones who can end a war and still choose who not to kill." The transmission cut. For several seconds, no one in the Imperial Palace spoke. Then Emperor Corac sat down slowly, as if his own throne had become too heavy to hold. 3 months later, Dr. Vexai stood in the Great Hall of Nexus Station with light moving through the cracks in his restored crystal body. He had survived because a human medical team found the peaceful dawn drifting in silence and refused to let one more Zaphirian die aboard it. Now representatives from 47 species watched him from the council tiers. They had not gathered to celebrate. They had gathered because they were afraid. The central display showed what remained of the Corac Empire. Once, it had stretched across a third of mapped space. Now it was a fractured stain of surrendering sectors, disabled fleets, liberated prison worlds, and commanders waiting for judgment. President Cathes of the Federation Council spoke first. 3 human ships accomplished in 3 months what our combined fleets failed to accomplish in 3 centuries. No one challenged her. A military delegate replayed the battle at Harmonis Prime. 3 small ships moved between 200 Corac vessels. Human boarders cut through command decks. Zaphirian children were carried from shattered schools in armored arms. Then the audio played. Human laughter echoed through the chamber. Several delegates flinched. Ambassador Felnora whispered, "They enjoy war." Vexai turned toward her. "No," he said. His voice was still weak, but the hall became quiet. "They understand it." That difference hung over the council like a blade. The representatives looked back at the screen. Earth's terms waited beside the tactical maps. No territory. No tribute. No colonies. No throne. The Corac would withdraw from peaceful systems, release prisoners, return stolen resources, pay reparations, and sign binding protections for civilian worlds. Any violation would bring humanity back. General Moxer, commander of the coalition fleets, folded his arms. And what stops humanity from becoming the next empire? The question had been waiting in every throat. Before Vexai could answer, the station's main screen activated. Captain Torres appeared. No one had opened a channel. No one had given permission. The council guards reached for their weapons, then stopped when they realized nothing hostile had happened. The human image stood calmly before them, not larger than life, not decorated, not triumphant. Just present. "We heard the question," Torres said. President Cathes went pale. "You are monitoring this chamber?" "Yes." The answer was simple enough to be terrifying. Torres looked across the council tiers. "You want to know why we will not conquer you?" No one spoke. The human's face softened, but his voice did not. 300 years ago, you asked Earth to stay away. We agreed. Not because your fleets could stop us. Not because your laws frightened us. We agreed because we saw what our strength looked like through your eyes. The display shifted behind him. Earth appeared in blue silence. We spent 3 centuries learning restraint. We ended hunger. We cured diseases. We built cities under oceans and gardens on moons. We raised children who knew more about music than war. Then the screen changed again. Harmonis Prime appeared after the attack. Burned towers. Broken schools. Zaphirian families standing beside human medics. But restraint is not absence. Mercy is not weakness. Peace is not permission. The chamber went still. The Corac made peaceful beings believe their last hope was a forbidden deathworld. That is not a failure of humanity. That is a failure of this galaxy. Felnora lowered her eyes. Torres continued. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your wealth. We do not want your fear. We want one thing. He leaned closer. Make sure no child ever has to send that message again. President Cathy's asked quietly, and if we tell you to return to quarantine? Torres was silent for a moment. Then he nodded once. We will return home. The relief in the chamber lasted less than a breath. But the next time a peaceful world calls for help, you will answer it yourselves. And if you do not blame the monsters for being the only ones who came. The transmission ended. No one moved. Vexai stepped toward the display of Earth. My people have written a new song, he said. We call it the Terran Harmony. What does it say? Cathy's asked. Vexai looked at the shattered image of Harmonious Prime, then at the blue world that had answered. It says the galaxy feared the wrong thing. The vote passed unanimously. Earth's quarantine signs were replaced across every navigation archive. Not safe. Not harmless. Not conquered. Available for humanitarian intervention. Terms non-negotiable. Far from Nexus Station, 3 human ships turned back toward the small blue world that had sent them. Behind them, the first Terran harmony spread through open space, soft crystal music passing from system to system. No fleet celebrated. No empire rose. Only the warning changed. The death world was listening.